The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope you can all hear me.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. Great.
Good morning.
My name is Natasha Edwin Walcott. I am the Senior Advisor, Competitiveness and Export Promotion here at Caribbean Export. Let me thank you all for joining us this morning. I will be your moderator. I just hope that all of you are in good spirits, all good things considered. I will just mute your mic for the purpose of the intro, and when we get to the question and answer session, then depending on the flow of things, I will either pose the question myself or allow you to pose the question.
Okay.
Okay, so on behalf of Caribbean Export, let me welcome you to this first in our webinar series. Caribbean Export remains committed to supporting private sector development, and our support during this crisis is even more acute. So we are very pleased at your readiness to participate in this our webinar series, and we hope that you will benefit from some useful strategies and tips from our experts over the today and the coming weeks. As I said, we were looking at cost and financial management this morning. And one thing is certain, that even while all the various surveys and studies are being undertaken, SMEs will be gravely impacted by this pandemic. We note a number of stimulus packages and moratoriums on financial obligations and other support measures being rolled out in various jurisdictions. And so for its part, Caribbean Export wanted to ensure that small firms like yourselves are equipped with the relevant information to improve your chances at sustainability. So it is our pleasure to introduce our facilitator this morning. He is Mr. Don Demerit, and he's a certified management consultant. Don is a former banker by training with over 25 years of multi-jurisdictional financial services experience. He currently serves as the president of the Caribbean Institute of Management Consultants and has previously served in various capacities within the institute. Don is a recognized SME expert and trainer and is one of Caribbean Export's ProNet Master Trainers. He has a successful track record in delivering training in competitiveness, strategy, innovation, and cost and financial management. So before I hand over to Don, as I said, we will go through the presentation, have Don present. If you have any question, you will note the question, the box on the platform. So you can pose your questions there. If there are questions in relation to a specific slide, note that slide number, and when we come to the end of the presentation, we will take those questions. Okay, don't fret if you've missed anything from the slides. We will make the slides available to you after the webinar. Okay, so once again, let me welcome you, and I turn over to Don.
Thank you, Natasha. Good morning, friends. I bring you greetings and salutations from my semi-lockdown location here in the Bahamas, where I'm enjoying the sunshine, and also I'm enjoying a glass of lemonade every 1 or 2 hours. I bring you greetings and salutations. I'd like to thank you for joining us this morning, because an hour of our time is really an invaluable resource that we're sharing. And I'd like to share with you a number of concepts that through Caribbean Export, the appointed master trainers have been sharing with a number of SMEs in the region, and as individual consultants, we've been sharing with our clients. This morning objective really is to go through a number of concepts. that we can use to actually map our way through this pandemic. Those of us who've been in this space for some time, we know that sugar will happen. And we ought to have been planning for this eventuality, but in all likelihood, it caught all of us by surprise. The next slide, but I'm having some difficulties. Oh boy, just give me a second here. I'll have to use this view instead of the full screen view. I hope this is not an inconvenience, but I was having some difficulties navigate through the webinar. Okay. I had prepared 18 shares plus or minus one, and the idea is to provide a recap, if you may, and share one or two concepts that may be new, may not be new, but the idea is to stimulate discussions. We know that over the past 5-6 weeks, there has been much discussion regarding the new reality evoked by COVID-19, regarding what we should be doing moving forward. And the question really is, how do I survive? When do I begin my new reality? What steps must I take? So by way of recap, I'm going to flash on the screen, okay? And this is, whoa, okay. I'm going to flash the screen the objective of this brief session. We're going to speak to breaking even in your business, just by way of recap and introduction to the crisis management portion. We're going to speak to crisis management in our businesses and life after COVID-19. Breaking even in your business, we're going to talk to what constitutes break even. We'll just flash some slides, which will be made available after the webinar. We'll touch on what can go wrong, managing a cash flow business during the crisis, planning for disasters, planning for the aftermath, lemonade, butterflies, and swans. So, by way of recap, and just to add a level of simplicity for the discussion so we all can relate, because I'm looking at the registration list, see there are a number of us from different disciplines. So the idea is to actually deliver something that we can all relate and speak to. So for the purpose of this webinar, we're going to focus on two types of costs only, fixed and variable. Of course, there are a myriad of costs, and this list is not exhaustive, but everybody goes into business to make money or profit. So the key to actually identifying and covering your costs is actually pricing and sales. Our next slide. Fixed costs. Fixed costs are those costs that we know do not deviate at all as output changes. Rent, salaries, okay, there are fixed tax levels, those are fixed costs as well. The variable cost changes in output. So the idea is to be able to identify and understand all of the costs. The break-even analysis, as we know it, really is just a snapshot that provides us with a tool to indicate whether we should go in the business or we should continue with the project or we should move on. But it's something that, as business persons, it's a good tool to have. Now, there are 4 break-even formulae that we normally relate to. But for this purpose, I'm clicking on 2 of them on the screen. The total fixed costs divided by the contribution margin is a break-even formula that relates to sales and units. The sales revenue equal total cost is that commonsensical formula that speaks to that sweet spot where our total revenue covers all of our costs, salaries, wages, the whole 9 yards. As business persons, we should all be aware of where that sweet spot is, give or take a couple of dollars or a couple of cents. And then we look at this pictorial depiction of what the break-even analysis would look like if we were to map it out. So I use this slide that we've been using around the region, and it's one that we have the spreadsheet that actually ties into this as well too. So if that's needed as a support tool afterwards, that can certainly be advanced to you as well. The x-axis speaks to cost and revenue. The y speaks to output and sales. So if you were to go back at the simplistic break-even revenue or the break-even formula that I spoke to, sales revenue equals total cost, you will see right here, okay, where the total sales, there you go, equals the total cost. There you go. There you go. It shows that even if you have no sales or no business, but after you have opened business, you have staff and you have rent commitment and so forth and so on, you start with a level of expenses that must be covered. And there we are right here. Okay. So just a brief discussion. What can go wrong? So we've been in business for 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 years as such. And now we are faced with our first real dilemma. Things have been sweet for so long. Here in the Bahamas, for example, last year we saw some very good touristic arrival figures. We were going north of 6 million in 2019. So this year was one where everybody's planning on pivoting and leveraging and all those good things that comes with embracing and exploiting so many visitors as such. But as a good friend says, sugar happens. And so what can go wrong? Looking at this here, I just placed 1 or 2 things just to stimulate discussion for corporate strategy. Expecting it, and they come along like gangbusters. Some pricing that you never imagined could succeed in the market on your sector. That's an economic downturn. It happens. Regulatory change. All of a sudden, as an exporter, there's a regulation in the country X, country Y, where I'm exporting my goods or services, that all of a sudden makes it onerous for my customers on that end to import my goods or my services. These things happen. And of course, the big elephant in the room, no contingency planning. On the natural disaster side, we have hurricanes. We had Maria a couple of years ago. Bahamas had Dorian last year, where the hurricane sat on 2 of our islands and decimated everything in sight. We now have the COVID-19. Pandemics happen, but we have COVID-19, and it's scary. It's scary. This region has experienced earthquakes. We've had tsunami warnings. And when you put all of this in the mix, the elephant in the room still is no contingency planning. And so we get on to the crisis management bit. Here we are, week 3 or week 4 or 5, whatever it is, of the COVID-19 disaster, COVID-19 era. And we're racing to think, okay, how do I manage my cash flow? How long will this thing last? 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Some places are saying end of June. Donald Trump in the USA is saying May 1st, and some people, even though they don't think it's true, are just hoping that their Lord that May 1st is sort of realistic. I don't think it is. And some people are even projecting far downstream, January 2021 and beyond. How do we navigate? How do we plan? Okay. In normal times, when everything is going good, we worry about capital purchases, our inventory. If we're a services sector practitioner, okay, how much papers do we need, ink, blah, 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 and so forth and so on. Expenses, loans, if we have any, and other outflows. And we know that we have to cover those with our inflows, our sales, cash sales, investment income, whatever the other cash injections are. But we know that we have to manage with what we can project when we come into our coffers. We can project cash sales with reasonable certainty. We can project new client business with reasonable certainty because client relationships are developed over a period of time. And you know when you're reaching that sweet spot where you're about to ink that deal. So there's some reasonable certainty there. In this environment, in this new environment, this new paradigm, things change. Now, if we were to bring that certainty from 2019 and into the first 3 months of this year, we would, for example, and this is just an example, a sample, simple close and cash flow statement. If we were projecting $10,000 a month in revenue or sales for January, February through to March, that's shown there as 30,000 in revenue and cash sales. We're not going to purchase any capital equipment yet because we want to wait until the tourist season pass and until we're in the September, October, back to school time, when I'm using the tourism example again, when the tourism arrivals is down a bit as such. So we want to do any upgrade, any modernization around that time. So that's how we project. Our raw material purchases during that time, we know that we're only purchasing, for example, $8,000 for the quarter. Our expenses are fixed at $10,000. That's certain. We know what our loan repayment is. And then the sugar hits the fan. What we heard about in October, November of 2019, the whispers coming out of China, is now a reality. And everybody is running for the bushes, proverbially. So we look at it again. We're now in April. We've had some okay cash sales because we've had some advance orders, etc. But the cash is down. Now, a number of us, through government interventions across the region, have been given a lifeline of sorts. There have been some grants provided to some SMEs, and I took the time to insert $5,000 there as an example, as a grant or as business support provided by governments to incentivize businesses not to lay off anybody, or to incentivize businesses as by way of support. But we know that sales revenue is down. We're not in the food store business where everybody is rushing to purchase toilet paper and fruits and so forth and so on. So we know our sales will go down. So, okay, how do we plan? So these things are just the little grains of doubts that will start to pop up as such. Our expenses are down because we're not actually producing, or we're not opening, our business isn't open as long as it was in the previous quarter. We're not an essential service. So we're told, well, you have to go home and do what you can, but you will not be allowed to do business as usual. So everything goes south. Then we project to Q3. Okay, the government incentives will go on until September. But beyond that, nobody knows. So with the revenue that I've earned and managed to keep in the bank, if you look at the cash balance at the bottom, I've got $17,000 plus cash injection coming into my bank account. And assuming that there was some savings there, it's a savings plus the $17,000. Now that's where the questions start to come on. Do I still make that capital purchase? Do I still purchase raw materials? If I'm a bookstore, do I go ahead and purchase back to school equipment and books, etc. now, knowing full well that schools are closed and many be open until next year? These are decisions that I have to go. If I'm a gambler, of course, and if I think that school may be open in September, October, and the supplies, the cost of supplies are dwindling so much because everybody is desperate to make money, I may take that gamble, right? But it's decision making time. And of course, to the government intervention and incentive, your loan, you gotta, if you're lucky, you got a interest holiday for 3 months. Some of us who are part of the Canadian banking network or as clients have received respite for, I think, what, up to 4 to 6 months of holidays, no loan payments period. And so the question is, if there are no loan repayments, then you're actually dialing up that as part of the cash flow, but it's showing you anyhow. But the question is, what do I do in the meantime? How do I stockpile? Should I continue to enforce my staffing levels? What decisions should I make? Because I want to continue my business. Do I pivot at this point? What should I do? And so that really is the purpose of this dialogue today, just to engender some thoughts. And so if we look at this in this cash flow management depiction that's here now, cash sales are down. Other cash, there's a question mark there because there is ongoing discussions regarding further incentives from government, from BSOs, further incentives. Okay, but we don't know what it is yet, but there's still a question mark. How do we qualify for them? Will it be given to me in my present space? Then we look at the outflows. We spoke to capital purchases earlier. Do we make the $20,000 purchase? That's a big, big question mark. In fact, I give it 3 question marks. Okay, look at my inventory. Of course, we know that that's a variable anyhow, for the most part. You don't purchase what you don't use. But then you look at the big question mark against salaries and wages. Governments are begging us as entrepreneurs, particularly those who can afford it, to please, 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 okay, hold on to your stuff as much as you can. We live in incentivize to assist you, but please hold on your stuff. Now, there are a couple elements here. One, of course, definitely is economical and commercial. And one, of course, speaks to health and mental stability. It's not a good thing to have thousands and thousands of our people walking around unemployed, worrying about what tomorrow is going to bring. There's enough discontentation about that around right now. So as business persons, this is our time to really, 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 really ramp up our game. Because as I heard in the webinar yesterday, and I'm paraphrasing a good friend of mine, he said that crisis or crises are where opportunities happen to abound for business people and entrepreneurs to grow and innovate. So for me, I'd like to throw it here to you that this is our innovation space, eh? This is where things are really supposed to germinate and begin to happen. How do we plan ahead for disaster? Well, we're in disaster now. And those of us who are on top of our game, we had business continuity plans stashed away, worked on years ago, and we continue to update every year or every 2 years. But for most of us, we know the name, but in terms of practicing what we preach and what we need to do, I'm not so certain that was the order of the day. But as we plan for disasters, we have to sensibly map through certain things. Do I have any contractual obligations, any ongoing relationships with customers that I cannot afford not to fill? So they're the things that you want to look at and you want to start to put that priority tag to. Okay, what can I produce that has a high markup and low labor content? Are there any automated processes that I have that I can really, really ramp up? The banks are doing that right now for sure. Okay, because there was a built-in level of automation in everything that they did for the past 10, 15 years. But as SMEs, ours is a different space. So we have to look at these things. We're forced to think through these things. We have to be objective, we have to be sensible, but we have to be humane. Then we look at our resources. If we're gonna prioritize, if we're gonna do A, B, and C only, as opposed to A to Z, okay? Who are the essential staff and essential resources? What are the essential resources that I need? And so you're ticking off. Do I need a manager or managers for the process? Who are my key staff? And as staff members or employees, this is where the rubber really hits the road. The versatile employees, the versatile team players are the ones who inevitably get ticked off. I mean, ticked off in terms of, this is one of my key staff. Because you want persons who can fill multiple roles as opposed to singular roles in these trying times. Your equipment, what do we need? Okay, production support. Who do we need? Who do we have to engage on standby to make certain that I can produce these priority things that I must have? And today, the questions that pop up that those of us as consultant practitioners and business owners that we need to really speak to and look at in a structured manner. Then we're moving into life after COVID-19. Now, what I've been doing as a consultant, I've ramped up my game in terms of planting fruits and vegetables and herbs in my yard. So I've been doing that, and it's been giving me time to really think and recalibrate and so forth and so on. Hence my second point of making lemonade. I've reached that stage, I think, in my life in terms of years, but in terms of experience, that you know that life will show all sorts of curveballs, and you have to adjust. So I'd like to share this with you. These are the key elements of a business continuity plan. But my emphasis here is business strategy. Strategizing and having your strategy, your business strategy, having it on paper, having it cast in stone, but not literally, because strategies change. But the message here is that you must have a business strategy, and every business strategy or business plan must have an element of a business continuity plan, or business continuity planning. How do I stay in business? Because we all go into business to make money for sustainability purposes, and for those of us who want to trailblaze posterity and austerity. And so these are the key elements here. A risk analysis schedule, where you identify, if you may, every conceivable risk that you can think of, even ones that your partner or your wife or your children or whoever may think nonsensical, you want to put pen to paper. You want to record them. You want to be able to rate it. And there's some simplistic ratings there. Of course, there are some of us who are really, really scientific when it comes to these things. But in the first instance, there are some intuitive things that we can do. Probability and mitigation. What's the chances of this happening? If it happens, and if it is a showstopper, what do I do? I spoke earlier to prioritizing offerings, identifying key resources. You want to do these things early in the game and not when a crisis is upon you. For example, you should have known from you open your doors or relatively soon, you should have known that if something happens, who are my key personnel? What are my key resources? And you need to log them down. And if any of the risks that you identify speaks to the need to ensure that risk, then you must bite the bullet. That has to be part of your expense. Identify service delivery channels on the business recovery schedule. As I wind down, I just want to share something that's simple, a basic risk grid. You can actually pull out a pen and paper anytime as an SME, or anytime as you drive in a car, you can begin imagining, okay, imagine things because things happen. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes when I'm driving somewhere, if I'm doing something, I get these scary moments. What if? That's a good time to try to, try to really take that snapshot. As soon as you can, put pen to paper. So you want to identify the risk factors. And for simplicity reasons, I've been using the same examples as much as I can throughout the presentation. Poor corporate strategy, improved competition, which speaks to employee attrition as well too. Prolonged power disruption, equipment failure, national disasters. These are things that we come across throughout the region. These are things that SMEs speak to without having a catalog, but they speak to. They speak to in webinars, they speak to in workshops and such. And the message always is, once you identify it, you want to quantify it as much as you can, and you want to speak to mitigation. Now, the poor corporate strategy, for this example here, I have it as a low probability, okay? The impact I have is medium impact. Because with entities such as Caribbean Export around the place, there's no reason for any of us not to actually prevail ourselves upon their services. It's there. And they've been doing it for a long time. They're good at what they do. Competition attrition, that's there. As SMEs, we know that for us to attract any good resource, it's normally a premium for us. So how do we deal with that? Prolonged power disruption. At some point here in the Bahamas, we've had multiple power outages. It's been good recently, but if I was to plot this grid last year, June, July, that would have been medium, or medium high. Equipment failure. For those of us in the indoor production sectors that rely heavily on equipment, that's one that tends to be high, medium, low, high. Now, natural disasters. I put the probability of medium. I don't know. That one was an iffy call because 6 years ago, for example, here in the Bahamas, we haven't had a hurricane hit here in New Providence for a long time, in the Bahamas for a long time. The same could be said to my friends in the British Virgin Islands. Same could be said to a number of my friends in the region. But all of a sudden, over the past 4 or 5 years, hurricanes have been like happenstance all the time. So there really is no excuse not to plan with that. But I'd like to end by sharing this screen here. As I was doing some research last week, I came across this quote from McKinsey and Company. It was a small paper that they put out. There was an update, really, an update of the current COVID-19 crisis and beyond. And the title is there. And it speaks to companies needing to think along 5 horizons. And what I've just walked through actually speaks to what has been encapsulated here. Resolve. Okay? We know where we are. Whoa. Time to dress. Resilience. How do I look at my immediate needs? Do I have enough cash to get me through, enough cash flow to get me through these next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months? You have to address it. And you have to really test it and address it. Some SMEs have boldly, the minute they heard of the possibility of the pandemic hitting the region, went to their banks and began negotiating interest rates, began negotiating, rationalizing their credit, their loans, etc. They began negotiating. But lo and behold, because of their advocacy and advocacy of governments, etc., the banks responded and have been responding. But that's temporary. So the next step is, okay, how do I restore my business stability? Do I go back in the same business? A number of stores now understand, number of store owners, number of business owners now understand that this is a new reality. This social distancing phenomenon is no longer a phenomenon. This is a reality. You've now seen more pop-up services delivery, and it's now fixed to everything that moves. So now it's the time for us in this space to think that, okay, what are the next steps? What can we do? We've seen the service delivery, we've seen that paradigm before, most recently too, with Uber one-upping the taxi industry. So we know where we're heading. So it's time to now begin to imagine, okay, what do I do? The juices should be salivating. Your hair should be reeling. Then you take that quick minute to have some lemonade, or that quick minute to maybe watch a Netflix series, something along those lines. But you are defining all along. Okay, you're looking at this new paradigm. What relationships do I need? Who do I need to speak with? Who do I need to engage? Who do I need to partner with? And you're preparing, you're recalibrating. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to my final slide and my final thought. And my final thought is this. We received some curveballs. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. We've been thrown some lemons. But hey, time for us to really make some lemonade. Look at the butterflies and think about swans. Weeks and months of curfew and quarantine should equate to weeks and months of creative thinking and incubation. This is an opportunity to turn your lemons to lemonade, to turn your caterpillars, or to incubate them into butterflies, and any ugly ducklings that may come your way into graceful and productive swans. I say blessings always. And I say this is our time in the region to really highlight the innovativeness, creativeness, creativity, and resilience of the Caribbean people. I say thank you for your time, and we're now open for a few questions and answers.
Thank you, Don. Thank you for your thoughts. So colleagues, the floor is open. I have been browsing the question pane. I haven't seen any questions related to cash flow specifically. So if I give you some time to think, and if I pose 2 or 3 questions to Don, maybe in that time you might have some questions. Don, from a lay person, not an accountant or finance person, and just thinking about it, one would think a way to preserve capital, if I'm a business person, to preserve capital, I may want to delay paying my suppliers. And so I delay these receivables. But if I am that supplier and I'm also awaiting that injection of capital, that will have an impact on my business. So how, how do you juxtapose the receivables versus payables? How can I improve my collection process in a time where everybody's trying to hold on to the little cash that they have? I hope you understand my question.
Yes, I do. And the question is a good one, but it also speaks to relationships once again. Okay, because at the end of the day, your suppliers have their bills as well too. And if you're thinking forward, particularly if you're going to remain in the space that you're in, that relationship is key and that relationship is valuable. Now, as you speak to your suppliers and as you speak to your banks in parallel, I would strongly suggest then maybe you can work out one or two arrangements that make sense. But those suppliers that are crucial to those prioritized items that you've identified, you need to make certain that you actually pay those suppliers. And if you can arrange with them the extra 5, 10, 15 days, okay, that will certainly help as well. Any extended time, extended credit will always help. And then on the and on your client side, those who you've been supplying your products to, okay, that conversation in terms of, listen, I know that things aren't good right now, so I'm not looking for 100% payment. So maybe we can have an arrangement where we can speak about 25, 30%, whatever the case is. That is a conversation what you may have to have. But you must know your suppliers and you must know your client. But that's a viable question. And the only solution to that is to really speak to your client and speak to your supplier.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Don. If colleagues, if you have any questions, just raise your hand and I will unmute your mic to allow you to pose your question. In the meantime, what about inventory, Dawn? Is there any way one can leverage the inventory, I don't know, to inject some cash flow into the business?
It depends. I've seen some instances of that in the region. I've heard some instances of that in the region. For example, there are various businesses around the region who have been manufacturing or shirts and different things, if you may. And now with the call for masks and for social distancing practices, etc., there are now opportunities for those who are in that space to begin to offer masks and different paraphernalia that persons can use. So that is something that works. And thinking this through a little bit more, you may have some inventory at hand what can be used to produce something else that is necessary. And so that is another thought, right? But it all comes down to the SME, to the space, and the creative thinking as such. Because inventory sitting there doesn't mean anything. If you need to discount everything you have heavily, that is an option as well too. Because there are persons who will jump at a sales price or a discount price.
All right. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. So I see we have a few questions. Keisha, Jean-Pierre, you can go ahead.
A question. In terms of your one of your slides, you indicated that we should be looking at what some of our key or priorities should be. I work for a non-profit organization, and one of the things we do is we assist the public by giving them little contracts for them to do work. In this situation that we're currently in, would that be considered something that's a priority that we need to cut down on, considering that as a non-profit organization, most of our funds, our revenue is currently not coming in because the government currently is in a situation where they themselves are cutting down on funds?
I would suggest, and that's a deep question for sure. I would strongly suggest that you prioritize. You have to look at those activities that impact the persons the most, particularly the most disenfranchised amongst us. Okay, if that's the space that you're in as such, and you want to use that as a priority as such. If there's something, and if you're a nonprofit, it doesn't mean not making money, it means that not after profit. And there are some activities that generate some funds that can be used to fund other key activities. Then you want to prioritize those as well too. Okay, but the idea is that you need to create a priority list that will keep you in the game in terms of some level of cash flow to pay whatever stipends you pay for staff members, etc., or for staff as such. Right, you want to stay in the game, but you have to go through that exercise. And the question you must ask, okay, if there is a hurricane today, I'm out of business for 1 month. What are the one or two things, if any, that we must do because somebody's life depends on it? And then my last point is that I would advocate the government as well too, because you may be covering a myriad of activities that are crucial, but hasn't been part and parcel of any planning internally on the government side. And so there are a couple of things there that I would actually begin to take a look at. I begin to take steps to either establish the protocols or to make the connections to ensure that those priority lists are observed. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Shayna Smith, you have a question? Shayna Smith.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Hi, Don. Shayna here from DI. I had two questions. As it relates to the government support, we have a situation here where we haven't heard anything definitive as yet. And a lot of our businesses are, basically in crisis mode to the 10th degree. So I'm kind of wondering now in terms of, what should be some of maybe like the top 3 things they should be looking to do this week in terms of, whether they should close their business temporarily in order to be able to survive this, or, go to the banks, ask for extension of credit line so that they can have some kind of operating cash flow for the next 90 days. In order to get, kind of get through the tunnel, and then at the other end of it, try to restore the business. What are your thoughts?
Shane, it's always good to hear your voice. I'll tell you that.
Thank you.
Trying to contextualize what you said, right? As business persons, and all of us face some element of fixed costs anyhow. So as long as we can cover a portion of that fixed cost, we should consider staying in business as we recalibrate and make that determination. Should I stay? Should I stop? Should I move on? Should I transform? And so using the credit incentives or the loan incentives that many of the banks in our region have been trotting out is not a bad thing, just in case. For example, if you're able to broker a deal with whether it's First Caribbean International Bank or it's Scotia Bank, wherever the case is, and they sign off, or you make the request and they sign off, and you're not having to pay your business loan until September. then I mean, I said by all means as such, right? Anything that you can generate that says dollars in cash, I mean dollars and cents, you may want to take a sensible look at. But the caveat there is, or the cautionary note there is that that's monies that you want to hold on to as much as you can, because when September rolls around, okay, business will not be as usual, and you didn't know what that new reality would bring us. Okay, but in the meanwhile, as you have that respite between now and August, that's where your real planning in terms of pivoting. What should I be going to now? And I know that you're a planner. Okay, what will it take, etc. So so this is your respite time in the interim. If you can secure that lending grace, and I strongly recommend that you do. This is your time to pivot and recalibrate and stuff, and then begin to identify the questions that you need to address and see if you can answer them. That's the best I can do without one day, yes.
Okay, and that's helpful. And then as part of our business continuity plan, should we include business interruption insurance? Obviously, we wouldn't want to add costs, no, but you know, as something for future planning.
You know, and I say, shoots, why not? You should. You know, let me stick in the plug here for one of my colleagues who actually conducts one of the better, if not the best, business continuity planning program in the region. Dave Collister out of Trinidad, right? I've seen some work that they've done, right? And they strongly suggest that you actually insure whatever you can, because at the end of the day, let's just say it is insurable, and somebody was able to get that insurance to cover their business interruption for the year 2020, or for the months that fall under this COVID-19 pandemic fair, and you're being reimbursed based on your levels from 2019, 2018. I mean, hey, that's a wise move. But anything that you can insure, you have to insure.
Okay.
If there's business disruption by way of or power disruption to the BVI as such, then you know you want to purchase yourself a generator, right? So it's the same kind of thing. Anything that's going to cost you, you need to find the best mitigating tool to deal with that. Theft, insurance, okay?
Okay. And just as a point.
Sorry, Sheena.
Okay.
I just want, can we just allow a few others to ask? Because we're coming close to 11 and I see quite a few hands. So unless it's not a pressing, if you don't mind.
No, just wanted to say that pandemic isn't covered under business interruption insurance, just for those listening. Because I checked on that yesterday and we found that out. It does hurricanes, but it doesn't cover pandemics.
Okay, thanks, noted.
That's 2019. I can assure you that somebody's going to take on that risk for 2020 and beyond.
Okay, Ruth Spencer, the floor is yours.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think this model that has been presented to us needs to take into account social costs and social benefits in our enterprises. Because right now, I know I have to have digital products in my business, and the social aspects and components I have built into my business planning is what's taking me through. So every service I need, I can reach out to those social platforms and the people I invested in, and they're the ones who are providing the training. So I have not been spending any money. I have classes ongoing, and these systems that I helped when my business was going good are the ones that are now providing, volunteered and in-kind services to me. So I think going forward, investing in people, seeing the value of developing not just the people in our business, but those in our communities around where we live is gonna pay off big time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Natalie Charles.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Moderator, I'm so sorry I did not get your name. Can you please tell me your name?
Natasha Walcott.
Natasha Walcott. Good morning, and good morning, Mr. Dimitri. So my question is around banking. In terms of the banks, even if a company gets a moratorium or some grace period, right? Interest accrues on a daily basis. So for bigger loans, at some point in time, there will be a point where the interest alone will in effect exceed the monthly loan payments. And that would essentially make a business worse off. How would you, Mr. Dimitri, how would you suggest that one deals with that type of situation?
That is a pretty good question there. I can say this, that the models I've seen on this end here, okay, what I've seen is an extension of maturity dates as an offer. Okay, so for example, if you have a 6 months moratorium as such, rather than your business loan expiring, say at the end of 2021, it now goes to June 2022. I've seen that offer, and if that is not the offer, then that is a discussion what you should have with your banker, because it can speak to you can deal with it in a couple of ways. One is to rationalize the amount over the remaining tenure of the loan, of the business loan, or whatever it is. When I say rationalize, I mean in terms of incrementally increasing your payments. So if your payment is, say, for example, $500 a month, a rationalization to have you pay $550 a month may be something that you can give it as such, right? But that is a conversation that you have to have, and that's a very good observation. That's an excellent observation. But I also would like to piggyback on what Ruth said. Ruth, the idea behind the model was not the offer of solutions, just food for thought. If the mitigation of the mitigant or the mitigation action for being able to deal with this disruption is to develop business relationships outside of what you do, or to outsource certain things, then that certainly is a good course of action. If the mitigation action is to move away from traditional marketing and marketing over social media, okay, then that's certainly is the way to go. And so the model only speaks to invoking food for thought, but most certainly relationships in business are what drive businesses. So that was a very good point that you made. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dimitri, and thank you, Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome.
We have Ricky Permanand.
Hi, good morning all. I'm talking from Trinidad. So far, I think the conversation's focused a lot, for obvious reasons, on keeping businesses and staying afloat. I would like to emphasize a couple of points on strategic thinking and moving forward, because as has been said by Don, it's also time for thinking and building for the future. I personally believe that in the Caribbean, we are not adopting the new ways of doing business fast enough. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to learn. I always say that we are significantly behind the 8 ball when it comes to innovation, and there really is nothing that we have to innovate on. We need to borrow and adapt to our societies. And you know, the simple things like, if you look at retail and bricks and mortar and the issues that bricks and mortar is having in the developed world at this point in time, where there's a lot of bankruptcy, we ought to be thinking about that now. As we need to take cost out of our systems, we need to be looking at these new initiatives to take and develop our businesses. And I'd just like to leave you that thought, and Don, maybe get some feedback from what you think about this.
Thank you, Ricky. Any comments?
Ricky, I think you're spot on. I think that one of the things that we are lacking in this region is having the I don't want to use the word, but having the balls to accept that something that happens in Trinidad, for example, or St. Lucia, can happen or can work in the Bahamas or can work in Barbados as well. We seem to be fixated on doing things our way as such, right? As opposed to moving things around. And we also are fixated with what we see happening on mainland America as such, or in Europe. And you are right, bricks and mortars are failing left, right, and center. How do we pivot? Now, the Americans, looking at that same McKinsey report that I shared, their survey indicated that 64%, I think it is, of the persons who they actually surveyed said that they are pretty certain that they're going to stay in the new paradigm in terms of the new service delivery modalities and so forth and so on, and whatever it brings. So we in this region, we should be thinking in that space. We should be thinking in that space, I mean, for a plurality of reasons. And we should be thinking in that space of how do we speak and shake hands with everybody along the chain. Because this is a serious market we have. It's not huge in global terms, but it's enough to adequately satisfy all of us if we engage in this space and we use innovative and creative talents that Caribbean people are known for. So you're also right? This is the time to really start speaking the strategy and such. In fact, if you note, I tried to pivot this presentation, even though it was supposed to be speaking about cash flow, etc., on the strategizing, because unless there's a strategy, your cash flow means nothing because it will dry up. If you don't understand that if you enter in a rental agreement or lease agreement with somebody tomorrow and you're paying rent of $3,000 a month and nobody wants it, and nobody's entering stores going forward after this thing is raised, then you're in trouble. This is a different space. This is a virtual space. We have to think along those lines. How do we engage virtually across the region as such? What skill sets can I get out of Trinidad, for example? For example, a couple of years ago, when there was a downturn in Trinidad, I have a relationship with TTMA, with the ED there. And I know that there were a number of manufacturers in Trinidad who were humane and who didn't want to lay off anybody, even though the sales were not going anywhere. And that was an ideal time. And I try to spread the gospel. It's an ideal time for others throughout the Caribbean to perhaps import items from Trinidad because the manufacturers were prepared to extend 30 days, 60 days, just to get these goods sold. And it would have been a win-win for everybody. That's the thinking that we need in this new space. But Ricky, thanks for that comment because that really, invokes some memories in me as well.
Thanks, Don. I note we have about 5 questions, but some I see might have been answered. One talking about business insurance. Yes, Shana asked that. Viloma, do you have a question that hasn't been touched on yet?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. My question is, according to all the situation now, do you think that would be better to change our strategy, the production after the COVID-19?
You said change your strategy. I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah. The question is, do you think it's not necessary, for example, to change strategy, production strategy after the COVID?
Don?
I heard the strategy, but I didn't quite make out the word before strategy.
The production strategy.
Oh, production.
The productions, yes.
Production strategy.
Yeah, production strategy. Sorry.
I think it depends on the sector that you're in. Okay, for example, right? if you are in the food production sector. That is a sweet spot. Now you may have to look at your service delivery channels. Okay, and so in terms of strategic thinking, yeah, maybe that's definitely a space that has to change. Food stores or supermarkets, for example, have to change their approach as well too. I know that I've submitted a suggestion to the government here that they should incentivize the supermarkets or the larger markets to outsource their deliveries, or outsource the new delivery opportunities that are now popping up, the SMEs. Okay, and they can set their standards and outsource SMEs, and that is a way of actually adding to the mix as well too, because as you can see, that's all that's happening now. And then so in terms of strategy, I mean, yes, in that space for sure. Me as a service provider here in the Bahamas, I have had to rethink a number of things, because even though face-to-face has not really been part and parcel of my delivery for the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've been doing a lot of business over GoToMeeting and Skype, etc. Okay, there's still room to improve, and so we all have to look at our strategies, and we all have to really adjust to the new reality, because business as we knew it yesterday is gone. It's gone. And as I read the many commentaries and comments and suggestions across the region, across the globe, and as I listen in the conversations, there are lots and lots and lots of good ideas. But we now have to really crystallize those good ideas, the ones that make sense in the real actions. So yeah, the strategic part is key, but that actioning part, that's super key. So yes, you are right.
Thank you. I'm all right.
Okay. I think there was a question about, was it Jermaine Rude? I think we might have touched on this question, but go ahead. Sorry, Jermaine, go ahead. Jermaine, are you there?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Hi. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, let's say you're a startup and you actually have the capital for the next 60 to 90 days, for instance, and your strategies, your marketing and everything, which would have been planned before, will definitely not during the crisis. Do you continue your same model in terms of the same kind of marketing, or do you potentially try to go into try and market new products that you never contemplated actually providing, just so that you're not just wasting the capital that you have during the time?
I strongly suggest testing it. Anything that any plan that was made prior to 2020 March, April should be tested. I strongly suggest testing it. And so unless it's something that was well ahead of its time, and something that spoke to all eventualities, least case scenario, best case scenario, worst case scenario, okay, I strongly suggest testing it. And even if it is best case scenario, I would test it as well too, because in this day and age, anyone with a good positive cash flow is in a position, is in an enviable position. They will have options. Now you can't think forever and ever. I believe in 85% approach. If I'm 85% certain, I'm going to jump. It's caused me some grief in the past, but I'm going to jump. So I'm not saying think until opportunity goes, right? But I'm saying that test and prudently wait and act.
Okay. Don, we have quite a captive audience. We will take 2 more questions because we've gone past 11 o'clock. So Andrea Williams.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I joined late, so I just want to find out if in the earlier part of the presentation, did anyone speak about donor seeder funding or any sort of donor funding that might be available. I'm calling from Jamaica, so I'm just asking for entrepreneurs here if there's anything that we could access.
Okay, we have a call for the DAGs sometime in June, later in the year. It's been delayed slightly, but it would be our usual call. The criteria, etc., will be published soon. It is not of course, it is not a direct response to the COVID, but as part of our usual assistance to small firms, we will have that DAG score coming out later in the year. The criteria and mode of application will be available, so stay tuned to our social media channels for that information. And of course, you can check out our website regularly. Okay, so I think we will end here. I hope that all your questions have been answered. We will make the slides available to you and the recording, so just bear with us while we get that organized. So on behalf of the team at Caribbean Export, let me thank Don for his readiness to lend his expertise and his time. And to all of you, thank you so much. As I indicated from the beginning, this is a first in a series of webinars that we hope to roll out over the next few weeks. Next week, we will have a webinar on branding, and the following week will be on supply chain management. I believe next week is the 30th of April, and the week after that, the one on supply chain management will be on the 5th of May. So stay tuned to our social media channels, our website. You will get those in our email blast as well. So thank you again for your participation. And if you have any specific questions, and I could relate to Dawn, you could send me an email at nwalcott@carib-export.com, and I will pass over that if there's any burning question that perhaps we did not get to ask or pose of Dawn. So again, thank you, and do have yourself a pleasant day.